Hello everyone, welcome to the Departamento Laboratorum. My name is Max, and today I'd like to talk to you about Chaos Space Marines. We're heading back into the warp to take a look at 8 more Chaos Space Marine Warbands. You may think that I've already covered most of the warbands in existence, but there are still tons of renegades and heretics to talk about. This video will be covering 8 unique Chaos Space Marine Warbands from the Traitor Legions and beyond. Each example would make a great choice for your Chaos Space Marine army. They all have distinct and fun lore that sets them apart from other Traitor Legions and one another, plus they offer extra freedom so you can really make them into your dudes. Even if you'd prefer to create a custom warband, these canon examples can still provide plenty of ideas or inspiration. I'll also just be doing an overview for each warband in order to keep this video from being too long, but if you'd like to see a video on a specific example, please let me know in the comments. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention that I have memberships on the channel. You can get access to some cool perks like members-only polls, shoutouts and videos, thank you to Wolfrey and Mr. Danger Zone for joining, and early access to all my videos. Of course, there's no obligation to join, but if you enjoy my content, please check it out. Now, without any further ado, let's get started with a warband that rebelled against both the Imperium and their own Legion, the Steel Brethren. Ever since they fled into the Eye of Terror at the end of the Horus Heresy, there has been little unity among the Traitor Legions. While they may come together to make war on the broader galaxy, much of their time is spent warring with other followers of the Dark Gods, regardless of kinship or Legion affiliation. Even the normally logical and pragmatic Iron Warriors aren't free from internal conflict, as the story of the Steel Brethren shows. Starting in the year 600 of M34, a vicious civil war erupted in the demon world of Medringrad. Known as the Dispute of Iron, the conflict involved dozens of Iron Warriors warbands, demonic hosts, and Titan legions. Unholy pacts were sworn, new warbands rose up, and old ones were destroyed, before the war suddenly ended 130 years after it started, leading some to believe that the war was waged on the orders of Perturabo, in order to weed out the weak and unworthy from his legion. One of the new warbands that arose from the conflict was the Steel Brethren. Cast out from their legion, the Steel Brethren left Medringrad in a cruiser, the Ferrum Invictus, but not before seizing an ancient land raider Achilles from the forces of warsmith Garok in the final battle before their exile, causing the Chaos Lord to swear vengeance on the renegades. As former members of the 4th Legion, the Steel Brethren are a large warband who are skilled in the art of siege warfare, and they are also known to make heavy use of transports and drop pod assaults. They maintain a close relationship with the Dark Mechanicus, and Tech Magi constantly accompany the warband in order to see to their twisted war machines. Their most notable engagement is undoubtedly the Siege of Vrax. The conflict began as a civil dispute, stemming from the Ordo Hereticus trying and failing to assassinate the popular Cardinal Zaphan, who had based himself in the armory world of Vrax. Over the course of the war, the Vraxian rebels slowly became corrupted by the forces of Chaos, thanks to the influence of the traitor Deacon Mammon and the Alpha Legion Chaos Lord Arcos the Faithless, culminating in 11 traitor Astartes warbands and demons of both Khorne and Nurgle joining the fighting. Being siege warfare experts, the Steel Brethren were an invaluable asset to the traitor forces, helping defend the Citadel from loyalist assaults. In return for their aid, they received several Valador tank hunters, variants of the Malkador heavy tank, as well as data on their design. Their exact fate at the end of the siege is unknown, but given that they went on to fight in the Nachmund Rift War, at least some elements of the warband survived. The Steel Brethren wear steel armor, with a black left pauldron. Their symbol is 2 red interlinked 8-pointed stars. If you were going to be playing against a friend with an Iron Warriors army, then the Steel Brethren would be a great pick, given their history with their parent legion. They'd also be a great choice if you wanted to use a lot of heavy vehicles and transports in your Chaos army, or if you wanted to run an Iron Warriors army but just didn't want to learn how to paint hazard stripes. This next example also fought in the Siege of Vrax, and has a contentious relationship with their parent legion, but focuses on a very different style of warfare. The Apostles of Contagion. Originally part of the Death Guard, the Apostles of Contagion split from their brothers long ago. They are the devoted followers of a notable plague sorcerer and former apothecary. His original name has been long forgotten, but he is now known as Necrosius, the Hand of Nurgle. After being driven mad trying to save his brothers when the Legion was trapped in the warp on the way to the Siege of Terra, he gleefully accepted the embrace of the Plague God, putting down his apothecary tools and turning to sorcery, and creating his own faction within the 14th Legion. A prideful man, Necrosius only grudgingly obeys his Primarch Mortarion, and harbors a deep hatred for First Captain Typhus. This led to him and his followers abandoning the greater Death Guard Legion, committing atrocities, creating plague zombies, and making enemies throughout the galaxy. Necrosius was thought to have been killed many times, although so far he has always managed to return to fight again. Like the Steel Brethren, the Apostles of Contagion took part in the Siege of Vrax, appearing in the later parts of the conflict to battle the Death Corps of Krieg on the bombed and barren surface of the planet. A relatively small warband, the Apostles made heavy use of plague zombies throughout the fighting. Although they suffered heavy losses, Necrosius and his followers did survive the siege, going on to plague the Imperium again in the 13th Black Crusade. A portion of the Warband, led by a Chaos Lord known as Thulg Poxmaw, recently took part in Mortarion's invasion of Ultramar in the Plague Wars, invading the world of Daxar to prevent them from mustering any aid. As detailed in the 8th edition Death Guard Codex, the Apostles, using Summoned Beast of Nurgle, managed to destroy the Imperial forces and end the threat Daxar posed to the armies of the Plague Lord. The new 10th edition Codex also included information on the Apostles of Contagion, although interestingly it states that they are led by the Demon Prince Bilegush, not Necrosius. This could be a mistake, or it could be that the sorcerer has finally fallen and been replaced. Although given that Necrosius has been believed to have been slain and still returned before, this may only be a temporary arrangement. The Apostles of Contagion wear armor the color of rusted metal, and their symbol is a stylized fly. If you liked using Poxwalkers or Sorcerers in your Death Guard army, then the Apostles of Contagion would be a good option. They'd also work well if you're going up against another Death Guard force, especially one led by Typhus, or against a friend with a Krieg army given their presence at Vrax. I also just think they're a cool and interesting group. There are plenty of awesome warbands dedicated to Nurgle, and these guys are no exception. But if you wanted a warband that didn't force you to stick to just one Chaos God, then this next group is for you. The Invocators. Originally a Loyalist chapter known as the Clerics of Steel, the Invocators fell to chaos in an event known as the Abyssal Crusade. I actually have a whole video going over the Abyssal Crusade, so if you want a more in-depth examination of it, then check that out. But to make a long story short, 30 Space Marine chapters, known as the Judged, were sent into the Eye of Terror by an Imperial Saint on a penitential crusade. Shockingly, this did not end well, with all but one of the Judged chapters being destroyed or falling to the embrace of the ruinous powers. It is unknown exactly what happened to the Clerics of Steel within the Eye, but once they re-emerged into real space, it was clear that they had been irrevocably changed, becoming the demon-worshipping Invocators. Comprised of many smaller, ragged warbands, the Invocators are skilled demonologists, summoning hordes of warp spawn in order to make up for their smaller numbers and to gain the blessing of the Chaos Gods. While they obviously seek the influence of the 4 primary powers of the warp, it is rumored that they will also curry favor with other, more obscure deities. Elements of the Warband fought in the Prosper and Rift War, assisting the Thousand Sons and their Primarch Magnus in expanding their domain. They also took part in the Nachmund Rift War under the command of the Black Legion Lord Harkon Worldclaimer. The Invocators have a unique color scheme, with a blue, purple, and red gradient on their armor and silver trim. Their symbol is a red flame, encircled by a red Ouroboros. As someone who's a big fan of the Wordbearers, I really like the Invocators. They tap into that same Chaos Undivided, demon worshipper vibe that I enjoy. If you also like the idea of making heavy use of Possessed, Dark Apostles, Masters of Possession, and allied demons, then they'd be a great choice. They might also be a good accompaniment to a Thousand Sons force, as they have fought alongside the Sons of Magnus before. Their color scheme is also very striking. It could be a bit hard to pull off if you don't have an airbrush, but it definitely turns some heads at your local game store. Let's move on to another warband that seeks to prove themselves to the Dark Powers, although they are far more selective. The Eightscarred. Introduced in the 7th edition Khorne Demonkin Codex, the Eightscarred are a warband, led by a Chaos Lord known as Vorax, that are utterly devoted to a bloodthirster known as Gakarax. Made up of Astartes and mortal cultists, they are all zealous followers of the Lord of Blood and Skulls. Viewing themselves as Khorne's only true disciples, each prospective member of the Eightscarred must prove themselves to Gakarax in 8 battles before being allowed to join the warband. If they fight well, then after each battle the demon will reach through the veil and carve a mark into the warrior's flesh. At the end of the 8 battles, these scars will form the Rune of Khorne, forever marking the warrior as a member of the Blood God's Chosen. If an aspirant ever fails in attaining their scar, they will turn their blades on themselves, taking their own life as an act of penance. As you can probably tell from the recruitment process, the Eightscarred have a close relationship with the demons of Khorne, and fought alongside them in many engagements over the centuries. In 784 M40, the Warband intervened in an existing guerrilla war between the White Scar's 3rd Company and the Eldari of Craftworld Oathway on the planet Scardenfell. Caring nothing for the origin of the war, the Berserkers sought only to shed blood and claim skulls in the world's fire swamps. The Eightscarred later joined forces with another Khornate warband known as the Wrath in 793 M41, slaughtering the Tau Septward of Saunesh, and then turning on each other to continue the bloodshed. At the tail end of the 41st millennia, the Eightscarred followed their patron Gakarax in assaulting the fortress world of Almarit. They destroyed the Raven Guard, Imperial Fist, and Tempestus Scion's forces stationed on the planet, reconsecrating the world and its shrines in blood, and causing it to be drawn into the warp to be transformed into a Khornate demon world. The Warband's last known engagement was the 13th Black Crusade, as they were drawn inexorably towards the Cadian Gate by visions of blood that they were determined to make a reality. The Eightscarred wear dark red armor with black pauldrons, backpacks, and knee pads, and brass trim. Their symbol is a blood-red rune of Khorne. It's a shame that so far the Eightscarred have only appeared in the Demonkin Codex, but I feel that book did a great job of fleshing out all its warbands, so they still have a lot of lore to guide you if you choose to make them your army. They'd be a great pick if you wanted to play as some more zealous berserkers, or if you wanted to have a lot of demons in your army. Plus they've gone up against a wide array of foes, so they work well in any playgroup. This next group has a similarly bloodthirsty and brutal history. The Sons of Vengeance. First introduced in the 4th edition Chaos Space Marine Codex, the Sons of Vengeance began their existence as loyal servants of the Golden Throne. But all that changed in the 34th millennium, during an event known as the Obscuran Uprisings. Occurring over the course of 4 centuries, the uprising saw hundreds of separatist forces rise in rebellion across the Segmentum Obscurus. To make matters worse, the war also resulted in 7 Space Marine chapters forsaking their oaths to the Emperor and rampaging across the region, looting and pillaging hundreds of worlds. The Sons of Vengeance, along with another chapter known as the Silver Guards, first entered the conflict on the side of the Imperium, but after brutally crushing a rebellion on Hadenra III, the Astartes became mad with power. They ransacked the planet, and then turned their guns on the neighboring Lascaria system, which at the time was still loyal to the Emperor. By the time Imperial authorities learned of their betrayal, the Silver Guards and Sons of Vengeance had split into a dozen warbands, fighting one another for dominance in a savage campaign that spanned over 14 star systems. We don't know of many other engagements that the Sons of Vengeance took part in, but they were spotted on Cadia in the final years of M41, presumably taking part in Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade. It's also possible that they will appear in the upcoming Astartes 2 series, as a Chaos Space Marine with a similar symbol was spotted in the trailer. This is not conclusive, but if they do show up it would be incredibly cool. I'd also like to credit Reddit user UDGNod for catching this. I never would have noticed it myself. I'll link their post in the description too. The Sons of Vengeance wear dark blue armor with red spotted patterning, red helms, and silver trim. Their symbol is a white flail. While we may only have a little bit of lore on the Sons of Vengeance, from the information we do possess, they seem to be a warband divided into groups of barbaric raiders, mercilessly pillaging across the stars. That's a fun concept for an army, but since we don't have any conclusive character for the warband, you're free to theme them in whatever ways you personally find the most fun. I do hope that we will be seeing them in Astartes 2, but for now we're just going to have to wait and see on that. Their color scheme also deserves a mention. It's definitely unique and eye-catching. I don't even think it'd be too insanely difficult to do, as you can achieve the red speckling effect by using techniques like sponging. I would also recommend that you paint the head trim silver, since the all-red helm looks a little weird on the new Chaos models. This next warband, while physically being united unlike the Sons of Vengeance, is similarly spiritually divided. The Raptorous Flayhost. Created as an example crusade force by studio photographer Caleb McPherson for the 9th edition Chaos Space Marine Codex, the Raptorous Flayhost are a warband of veteran Night Lords with an interestingly chaotic twist. Led by a demon prince known as Jago the Flayer, the warband are veterans of the Long War, and have fought in countless battles over the millennia, as illustrated by their well-worn weapons and armor. A varied force, the Raptorous Flayhosts include many different units among their ranks, from imposing Terminators to corrupted Warp Talons and possessed Space Marines. Their lord, Jago, was formerly a simple raptor, but rose to power after killing his officers and making dark pacts with both Tzeentch and Slaanesh. After attaining demonhood, Jago's monstrous form sprouted 2 faces, representing his soul being split between the 2 conflicting gods. The warband has fought against the Astartes of the Blood Angels and Knights of Byzantium chapter, as evidenced by their trophies, but Jago's most hated foes are the Space Marines of the Howling Griffins, and they presumably seek to bring the chapter to battle wherever they can. The Raptorous Flayhosts wear the midnight blue and gold trim of the Night Lords, albeit heavily weathered, and their symbol is the Legion's bat-winged skull. I debated about including these guys, as I don't really like to include the personal armies of GW employees, but in the end, I thought that Caleb's Raptorous Flayhost did such a great job at showing off how you can theme and create a story for your own warband that I just had to include them. Even if you don't want to play as these guys specifically, you can definitely take some inspiration from them. They'd also be a great pick with the upcoming Raptors and Warp Talons kill team, or if you're going up against a friend with a Howling Griffins army. Plus, Tzeentchian or Slaaneshi themed Night Lords are super cool. Especially Slaanesh, I feel they'd work really well mixed in with the 8th Legion's hobbies, and that hasn't really been explored enough. Let's move from one Traitor Legion to another, although this specific legion technically doesn't exist anymore. The Sons of the Eye. When Abaddon the Despoiler created the Black Legion, most of the surviving members of the Sons of Horus joined their former first captain, abandoning the old, failed legion. Some, however, refused to follow the new War Master, maintaining their faith in Horus's return, or else refusing to bow down to any new master after his death. The Sons of the Eye were one such warband. Led by Drakarth the Sightless, a former captain in the Sons of Horus, he and his warband had been present at the Legion's Fortress Mausoleum for their Primarch on the world of Malium when it fell to Fabius Bile and the Emperor's children. Considering Horus to be a blind fool, and Abaddon little more than an upstart that Drakarth had always competed with for influence, the Sons of the Eye set out on their own after escaping the destruction at Malium. Refusing to swear oaths of loyalty to the War Master, they went on to seize the fortress of a World Eater's warband under the command of the Chaos Lord Voslok at the Battle of the Keening Deep. Dracarth even took the Berserker Lord's demon axe from him during the fighting, using it to slay its former owner. Over the centuries, Dracarth continued to prove himself as a capable leader, and his exploits began to trouble his former rival Abaddon. Warned by his sorcerers that the Sightless would one day grow powerful enough to undermine the power of the Black Legion, Abaddon decided to come before his old comrade with an offer. The two would join their forces in the 6th Black Crusade, invading the Forge World of Arkwreath and splitting the plunder between them. Dracarth agreed, and together the Sons of the 16th Legion destroyed the armies of the Adeptus Mechanicus, leaving their once great manufactorums in ruin. Once the battle was won, Dracarth and Abaddon met on the ruins of the planet to celebrate their victory. But as soon as the two clasped their hands in greeting, the War Master struck, driving the talon of Horus into the body of his old comrade. Dracarth lived just long enough to see his warriors kneel and swear fealty to Abaddon. While the Sons of the Eye are now just another part of the Black Legion, there are other bands of thrice-cursed traitors that still refuse to follow the War Master's lead. These include the Wolves of Horus, old Luna Wolves veterans seeking return to the old glory days and choosing to venerate their Primarch by bearing the name of his old legion. The True Sons are another such warband, continuing to worship their fallen father and erecting shrines to him on any conquered worlds, bowing down before these idols before ritually burning them. We don't know what colors the Sons of the Eye wore, but it was presumably the sea green of the Sons of Horus. They also used the Eye of Horus as their symbol, albeit ritually defacing it to represent the blindness of their Primarch. Other warbands may use the old Luna Wolves' white and black color scheme, or could have developed other, more unique heraldry over the millennia. The Sons of the Eye, Wolves of Horus, and True Sons are all really interesting. I'd love to see more be done with the idea of Sons of Horus splinter factions. Unfortunately, we haven't seen much from them since their introduction in the 6th edition Black Legion Codex supplement, but hopefully that will change in the future. They'd be a good way to use some Horus Heresy models and bits in your 40k army, or to play your full Sons of Horus army in 40k. And they'd of course work great as opponents to a Black Legion force. For this final example, we're going to be going back to the 90s and taking a look at another really unique Traitor Legion warband, the Brothers of Retaliation. Introduced all the way back in 1999, in Citadel Journal number 33, the Brothers of Retaliation are the creation of one Lorenz Karaka, and can trace their origins to the Thousand Sons Legion in the days immediately before the Horus Heresy. When Magnus the Red and his sons discovered proof of Horus's treachery, there was some debate on exactly what should be done, but for Chaplain Lorden Thalarn, there was only one option: the Emperor had to be told. After an impassioned speech to the Primarch and his senior officers, Thalarn managed to convince them to send a message to Terra. But if the chaplain expected to be rewarded for his loyalty, he was sorely mistaken. The Emperor's reply was made in the form of an assault by the Space Wolves Legion, causing Thalarn and his brothers to join forces with the very traitors that they had attempted to warn the Imperium about. After the heresy, a bitter Thalarn found himself on the planet of the Sorcerers, witnessing his once proud legion descend into a rabble of honorless mutants. Nursing a burning hatred of the Imperium for causing this humiliation, he and hundreds of his followers left the Thousand Sons a millennia after the heresy, conquering an Eldari crone world and constructing a fortress known as the Black Cathedral, from which they could strike back at the followers of the false emperor. Joined by hundreds of thousands of mutants, renegades, and heretics of all stripes, including the demon princes Adeb Ungoth and Thorn, Lord Thalarn and his ally, High Sorcerer Baal, know their time of vengeance is at hand. While they have split off from the greater Thousand Sons Legion, the Brothers of Retaliation have been known to fight alongside their former comrades, joining them in the Nakaman Rift War as part of the army led by Harkon Worldclaimer. The colors and symbol used by the Brothers of Retaliation are unknown. I've chosen to show them using the default Thousand Sons color scheme, but the models we have for them are far more varied and ornate, so anything could work really. The story of the Brothers of Retaliation is definitely an interesting one. Some of the specific points may seem weird to a modern viewer, but the broader plot and ideas have remained consistent, which is impressive considering it's 25 years old. As a warband who is descended from, but distinct from the Thousand Sons, they'd be a great pick if you wanted to play a Tzeentchian army, but not feel forced to use only Thousand Sons models. They also have some really cool kit bashes. Lorenz Karaka did a great job with them, and they'd make good inspiration for some of the characters in your warband. So those are 8 Chaos Space Marine Warbands that you can use as inspiration for your own army of renegades and heretics. There are a lot of great options to choose from. I do love how varied and unique Chaos can be, and it's one of the reasons that they're my favorite faction in all of Warhammer. I think for my next video I'm going to keep this Chaos theme going, so stay tuned for that. Let me know which example was your favorite in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please also like and subscribe, it really helps the channel and the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to support the channel more directly, consider becoming a member. For now, thank you and have a great day. Bye!